No. All right, welcome everyone to the Finance and Audit and Tendering Committee meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Is there any conflicts of interest? Seeing none. Approval of the agenda? Okay.
I'd like to
Done.
add two items to the. I'd like to add two items to the agenda. But one is from Human Resources, which just met yesterday at lunchtime, and it's for a quote. It's for RFQ for our technology. And the second one was it's the snow removal services contract that was referred on here from Public Works.
Is the committee okay with two additions? Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have the agenda approved. We just need adoption of the minutes from our last meeting on the 7th. Councillor Duffy, Councillor Ramsey moved and seconded. Thank you very much. We'll get right into the tenders. 5A, we'll start with the one that's on the report.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, do you think we could deal with the snow one first, as
Oh.
Mr. Adams had a previous engagement, and he's disappeared?
Yeah, that's no problem. Whatever order
Yeah.
you want to go in.
He had and I asked him to attend this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we do the transit fuel first?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Transit fuel, 5A or 1. I don't know if there's anything that has to be added here, Don, if Nancy's here. I mean, I know there's a little report in our package here. It's Councillor Ramsey.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Donna, for bringing that up. I'm just looking at funding again for transit, and it's close to my heart, and it is yours, Donna, because I worked there for 12 years, and I see how much it's grown, and it's very crazy right now. Every bus is jammed. How much more do we keep supplying the transit, I guess? Because we are over $1 million now, aren't we, a certain thing? And it's all we own are the buses, correct? And we're going to own the building. But at the same time, the business is not the city of Charlottetown's. And like, this is just my own personal view, and I've been asked this a few times, like, how much more money do we keep giving? Or because gas prices did drop recently. They're up today, I guess, but they did drop recently. I just want some clarification, I guess.
With respect to the fuel, Mr. Chair, and Councillor Ramsey, that's part of our contract. Anything over $1.50, we would pay. Anything over $1.50, we would pay that incremental amount over $1.50. We get a monthly report has a daily, what the daily rate was and how much they used on that day. We budgeted $88,000 for the year, thinking it was a good number. At that time, the first quarter we spent $76,000. She's gone through her budget, and she was able to find $60,000 savings that she thinks she can find, not just in transit, but in sustainability and environment. But she believes that for transit fuel, she'll need another $140,000, and she would like to transfer from transit an ES transfer, an operational transfer as well.
Thank you for that, Donna, because I didn't realize that once it went up over $1.50 that so I thank you for that. It's all clear as mud now.
Actually, it's $1.10. I said $1.50, it's $1.10. Who would have, when we signed that agreement, who would have ever thought it'd be at $1? At $1.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions or discussions on the transit fuel resolution? No? Okay, so we're good. Okay, so we have Mr. Adams back in with us, so we'll drop back to the snow removal services. So I'm not sure who's leading that, Don? Mr. Adams. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for having me today. So yes, coming from the Public Works Committee, we have a resolution in front of you to recommend the award of snow clearing services. These are for priority routes around the city that was previously done by the provincial government. They are getting out of the contracting business and focusing their resources on their main highways. So we had to go and find a contractor to replace them. And again, we had 4 bidders, and it was an RFP process. So there is a scoring matrix that was included in the RFP, which was essentially 50% was based on their written proposal on how they're going to do the work and the resources available to do that work. And then the remaining 50% was based on cost. So based on the scoring, we had scored Chapman Brothers ahead of Island Construction, Matheson Construction, Label Construction. And we brought a recommendation forward to our committee, which was approved to move forward to this committee.
Mr. Chair? Oh, do you want to go first? Go ahead.
I did see Councillor Rivard first. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Adams. Just a quick question. So I know it talks about the priority routes the government used to do. So Chapman still have East Royalty on a contract. I'm assuming Matheson still have the West Royalty area on a contract. You obviously you're nodding your head, so that answers
correct,
my question there. You guys must just, I mean, again, at your committee meeting, there is quite a significant price difference over the term of the project, upwards of $450,000 plus HSD between, I'll say, the top 2, Chapman's and Island Construction. I guess my question is from your experience, and I guess from seeing the RFP and the committee meeting, do you feel uncomfortable that the service that is being provided by Chapman's definitely offsets the cost savings that is being offered by Island Construction?
A great question, Councillor Rivard. So maybe I'll kind of give a little bit of background before I answer your question. So when we receive an RFP, again, the key things that the contractor has to make sure is they clearly detail in writing how their approach to the project, how they're going to meet the goals that we've set out in the RFP document, and whether they need to talk about their resources in terms of staffing, staffing levels and support staff. They should be talking about their equipment and, the age equipment, their plans for replacement, and then how they're going to attack the storms in this case. And so those are kind of the key things that we're looking at when we review these submissions. Did the contractor clearly and explicitly tell us how they're going to achieve our goals? Because at the end of the day, the RFP or the submission from the contractor will be part of the final agreement. And so that's what we are going to hold them accountable to. So it's unfortunate, but it's very hard to score. As someone who scores these, and I've done many of them before, we have to go in with the mindset that we have never worked with this contractor, that we don't know these contractors, because you could have a contractor that submits a bid that you haven't worked with, but you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Here's their plan, here's how they say they're going to attack it, and that forms part of the contract. If they say they're going to do that way, and you're very pleased with what they submitted, that's, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. That's what they're going to do. So we have to, like I say, we have to go in with the mindset that we have not worked with these contractors before. We don't know them, but we have to get to know them through their document that they submit. Firstly, we don't even look at the price. We look at their proposals and score their proposals accordingly. And the reason why we do that, if there is a line in our proposal or our document that says, if you don't achieve a score of 30 out of 50 on your proposal, we don't even look at your pricing, because if you can't even get 60% of the marks at the scoring, are we comfortable with awarding that work? So I guess back to your question, we went through and scored these accordingly based on their proposals, and then there's a formula that gives them their points for their financials. And when just going through the proposals, like Chapman Brothers, they had a great proposal. They were very detailed on their staffing levels. They have some great experience in terms of how many years their drivers and operators they're going to assign to this route are. And then talking about equipment, the age of the equipment that they're going to start out with and their replacement plan. They talk about the average age of the fleet that they will maintain. And then they talk about their approach to each storm, from their meetings with their staff to, if this is from 0 to 15 centimeters of snow, this is how they'll attack it. 15 to 25, this is how they'll attack it, and greater than 25, this is how they'll attack that storm. So they put a lot of emphasis, a lot of work into that proposal, and it reflects in the score. The other companies did put a proposal in. There was some good information in there, but it was lacking. We didn't get a good sense of how they plan to approach these storms and how they plan to replace their fleet, things like that. And those are some key parameters that we look at that are part of our other contracts with private contractor snow clearing, and something that we are we want to make sure we have in this contract as well. We did ask some follow-up questions, and again, just not enough information, or just not the answers that we were looking for, or we thought would give them more marks. So so based on that, based on the scoring, we feel comfortable that Chapman Brothers has a great plan put in place, and would be very successful with this work.
Your worship.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we discussed this at the Standing Committee for Public Works and Beautification, and I outlined my reasons why I opposed it. Similar to what Councillor Rivard said, that they're $89,000 less per year. You times that by 5, it's almost $450,000 less than the recommendation from our department engineer, chief engineer. If you look at their track record, we're not talking about someone we don't know. They've been in the business since 1949. They're actually plowing almost 300 kilometers for the province, and they're the largest snow removal contractor on the island. So I go back to some of the comments made by here in council that, we're responsible for the taxpayers' purse, and this is a case where the taxpayers' purse is first and foremost, because we know these companies, and we know their history. If it's not in paving, it's also in snow clearing. So I am opposing the recommendation from our chief engineer. And if we look at other opposition from council and mayor, we get recommendations from our planning department. We tend, sometimes we disagree with those planning recommendations. So we're not breaking new ground by not supporting or endorsing the recommendation from our manager of this department. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe for one second that, I just don't believe what I'm hearing. We have set up a point system and points for the monetary aspect of the whole thing. And we 99 or 95% of the time we adhere to that. And all of a sudden, a case comes along such as this, where we just want to abolish what we've approved before, the method and the merit and that sort of thing, just out of nowhere. It's just, we either have a system and we do it 100% of the time, or we don't do it 100% of the time. This is back and forth, depending on who the applicants are, or who the business people are. And to say that the steward of the taxpayer's dollar, oh well, that's lip service if there ever was one, because not so long ago, we're talking about enterprise fleet management, and we now have killed a contract that we had one list of vehicles went in
for purchasing a total, I believe, of 19 vehicles. And now, when they're being delivered and we see the markup, the suggested, the manufacturer's suggested retail markup, we're seeing we're $15,000 per half-ton truck, which is going to be close to $200,000 alone in half-ton trucks, not to speak of the other vehicles. So to say we killed a contract that we will not be able to avail ourselves of with vast amount of money we call taxpayers' money, but here today we are stewards of the taxpayers' money. But back then, we weren't stewards of the taxpayers' money. I'm just so upset with this method of doing business that it's, I got 60 days left, I guess, and I'm going to hope they go fast. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to follow up, Councillor Duffy. In no way was I saying that the RFP was incorrect or it wasn't respecting committee's information. I guess I don't sit on the standing committee, so I get the report. Again, I think it's a prudent question to ask. Does the committee or does staff feel that the service being offered outweighs the price difference? And the answer is yes. So I appreciate that, but I mean that's just a clarification question. I think we should be asking those questions.
Mr. Chair, I wasn't referring to Councillor Rivard's input, His Worship. To say the stewards of the taxpayers' purse when we gave up. Let's face it, I know some people are on one side of that issue that is, and I respect, I don't agree, but I respect their position and I respect them to have one. But don't tell me you're the stewards of the taxpayers' dollar. You blew, well, it's going to be when the other 3 or 4 vehicles are in. I wouldn't be surprised it's going to be over $300,000 that we just said goodbye to. But it wasn't Councillor Rivard's presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I mean, if I could just jump in with one quick question, Mr. Adams. So the province contracted out these streets previous years. Do we know who was plowing those streets for the province before it came here?
It was provincial crews. So the province had 2 of their own trucks that plowed these 26 kilometers priority level 1 roads. So it wasn't contracted to anyone but their own crews, and they're getting out of that business of contracting for business. They got out of Stratford last year. They have a contractor in there. All of Stratford's done privately now. And their goal is to, I think, because of resources, they're focusing more on their major arterial highways.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chair, again, we have members in council that cherry pick issues that they want to support their argument with or for or against. And I've heard many times that, it's the taxpayers' purse that we have to be concerned about. That's the bottom line. Today, it's not the taxpayers' purse. It's about a tender or agreement that we get out of that was based on a lot of assumptions. So here we are today, we're dealing with hard facts. These are hard facts. $85,000 or $89,000 less than the recommendation from the department. $450,000 combined or culminated over 5 years less. So again, we're talking about plowing snow, and I know some councillors may believe that they know more about the business than the people that are in the business. But being around the construction business, highway construction business, I can tell you that the numbers that are showing up here are hard, fast. These are hard savings. These are not assumptions. This is less almost 90,000 per year. So again, I listen and I respect the views of council, but in this issue, it comes down to the taxpayer's purse, and this is very clear by the qualifications by the 2 bidders that are in this discussion, that we have clearly a company that can do the work and do good service for the city. because we know that they have a track record dating back to 1949. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, like, what are we doing here, Donna? Like, this is why I don't really understand sometimes why this is coming through to us. So are we gonna have it, Public Works recommended it to, whatever, I mean, to end up going to council. So what are we doing here today then?
Mr. Chair, there is some confusion about which, and I've noted this since I came back, about why things are going to finance and why they go to the standing committee and to finance. I guess I would like some clarity from the committee so that I can direct staff in the future. It would appear to me that anything that is budget, once you approve the budget, you approve and you approve, through the budget process, you say you're going to do the major roads. When it would seem to me that that number that you approved in the budget is the number that you would use for this. If it's way out of whack, if it's considerably higher, or if you don't have money in your budget to do the work, I would think it would come to finance. Otherwise, it should come, I would think it would come from the standing committee straight to council. If you take, for example, the CAO's, the executive search firm, that wasn't budgeted for, so it would naturally come through. But you will also get a chance to approve it at the council level as well. So I would suggest, if you could give me some clarity so I could give clarity to staff, I'd really appreciate it.
I guess my only point, I'm not speaking for the committee here, so anyone jump in, but we kind of seem to get our knuckles rattled at this committee if we don't agree with some of the recommendations, and that's fine. But if we don't agree with some of the recommendations, that probably should be at council as opposed to here, because then it makes it look like the standing committee is above everyone else, which we're certainly not. So we obviously have different views on this particular topic. So I don't understand why this is here. This really should be a recommendation. Mr. Adams has a budget. His committee made a recommendation. It should just go to council. This is not an...
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. So this is a multi-year contract, so it's going to be in the subsequent this year's budget and 4 budgets after. So I think that's why it requires a decision from this committee. And again, if it doesn't synchronize with the Standing Committee for Public Works and Beautification, we've had differences from previous standing committees that didn't agree with each other. So this is a multi-year contract, and that's why I believe it should be voted in finance.
And Mr. Chair, if that's the clarity you give us, that's fine. I'm looking for some clarity from the committee as well. If multi-year projects have to come here, that's fine. I'm just looking for, not just myself, staff, everybody's looking for clarity on what goes from a standing committee to finance and what doesn't.
Mr. Chair? Oh.
Go ahead, Councillor Duffy.
I was just going to say, I agree full-heartedly with, like, in the budget process, and I agree with what Ms. McGill was just saying, is that we strike a budget, okay, and then council, or a proposed budget, I should say. Council meets and meets and meets on the proposed budget, and we slash and we move money around and everything. But then when it's passed on budget day, the department heads, under the leadership of the CAO, the department heads in the 10 or 11 departments, that's their money to spend for the purposes for which it was purported to be allotted. And like the Richard McEwens of this world and the Scott Adams of this world, we already gave them the money for this purpose. So as long as they're doing it for the purpose it was intended to, I have no problem. If there's a financial problem with it, and I agree with the chair, is that it should be discussed by council at a council meeting. They were the ones that passed the budget. It wasn't the finance committee, nor was it Public Works that passed the budget. It was the whole darn council. Thank you. And it shouldn't have any second views by finance. Finance doesn't know any more about plumbing, which Mr. McEwen would know about, or about the aggregate of asphalt. You're not expected to. Your bailiwick is to make sure the rules of tendering, auditing, and budgeting are adhered to for the best of the citizens of Charlottetown. It's not a watchdog over the other 9 departments. Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Chair. And I tend to agree, I guess, with your argument as well. I mean, the end of the day is that it should come back here if there's not a budget for it, and we have to approve a budget. But if it falls within the current budget that that council approved, as Councillor Duffy had alluded to, then it shouldn't come here. We have a recommendation to go to council. It should go right to council from the Public Work Committee. If it's within their budget, there's no new money. This should go right straight to council. I mean, again, we did get our knuckles rapped, as you mentioned, on the I think on the fire station, the whole process. So I'm with you. I think this should go right to council, and council should vote on it, and it shouldn't even come here.
This particular issue we're talking about right now.
It's no, yeah, so if it falls, Councillor Duffy, within, I guess, the allowed overall budget of snow removal, which council approved back in the spring, then if there's no extra monies being asked for, it should go straight to council.
I don't even know why we go to council. All the time.
No.
It's a tender, but
It's a request for proposals.
That's the proposal, council awards
Yeah.
on.
Not the spending of the money, it's who's going to spend the money for, too. Understand.
I don't know if I helped here, Don, or not. It's a little more confused. I just, we're gonna end up, again, possibly with, a recommendation from a standing committee that's responsible, a recommendation from finance, whether they jive or don't jive, and then all of a sudden we're gonna be, well, who does the finance committee think they are? I'm just trying to avoid that, that's all. But Councillor Ramsey has.
Yeah,
is-
and like sitting on all them too, like, and I understand what you said too, Chair, because one time there was a councillor stood up and rapped our knuckles and saying, how come finance didn't do this on certain projects? But we're not asking for new money. Scott, or Mr. Adams, it's already in the budget for snow removal, am I correct?
So we budget for all our contracted areas, and in our budget, we have, like, I'd have to double check, but in the overall snow budget, yes, there's enough money to cover those
Okay.
expenses, yes.
Okay, I'm good with it, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I think, sitting on all the committees myself, that we've had decisions from various committees, again, agreeing, disagreeing with each other. But for this contract, I believe the provincial government informed us that they will not be doing the snow removal after a budget was passed on March 31st. So, again, it wasn't in the budget because the province was on track to do it. And if I recall, you told us, Mr. Adams, that for the province, it was about $14,000 per kilometer?
I believe it's around, it's over 14,000 now, just with
Yeah.
the increases each year.
Yeah, so that was 14, so if it was budgeted, this new bid, or this bid from Chapman's is $3,000 more times 25.2 kilometers times 5 years. So again, it's a recommendation, whether you want to make it here or it goes to council. The budget was set in place. Government made their decision after March 31st of this year to go ahead with the city finding its own contractor or new contractor. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, that doesn't, and I want to zip the lip after this, that logic doesn't follow, because if it was after our budget, neither party, neither tender, if it was after our March 31st budget was passed, neither that company or that company, what his worship is saying is it wasn't budgeted for within the budget. It wasn't budgeted for anybody if the province announced it after our budget. And we know who the two parties are concerned. There's no money there for that activity to take place.
Yeah, that's my point, is that it wasn't, we were talking about if it was in the budget. It wasn't in the budget. Doesn't matter if Chapman's or Island Construction knew about it. That's our responsibility to put it in the budget. So again, Mr. Chair, if you decide to move it up to council, I understand that you're trying to move it where council will make a decision as a whole, but if we want to get into this, that, and everything else, I think we're going off track. So let's just make a decision to bring it forward.
But your worship,
So-
will that, will that, the decision of council would be to add this money to the snow removal budget, right? It will not be a decision of who will get the contract.
Are we adding money to the budget, I guess is the question. I mean, ultimately, Mr. Adams, I think you said, no, we're not adding, we have the funds. There's no additional dollars going. And just for clarification, and maybe I'm wrong, Mr. Adams, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, we did have the provincial, the money that we allotted for the provincial snow removal in our budget this year. So it's not as if this is all new money. We actually had budgeted that amount for the province to do the snow removal at whatever the price they did. So
You're correct. So we already had budgeted, and I think it was around 15 or 16,000 per kilometer for this coming year, for what we anticipate potentially paying the province. So that money's still there. We also have another contractor account in there. We have two more contractor accounts. One's for trucking, one's for loaders and excavators and all that. And I believe last year we were underspent in those accounts, not by a lot, but again, at this time we're not asking for additional funds. We believe that the funds can be found within the existing snow budget.
So just to conclude, Mr. Chair, just to conclude, again, I recall Mr. Adams stating that it was about 14,000 with the province. We're looking at 17,000. Again, you do the math, you times it by 25 kilometers, times it by 5 years. It's additional money. We'll have to find it somewhere in the budget. So that budget line item is going over because we have to transfer or allocate money from other areas. If the decision of the committee, Standing Committee of Finance, is to move it up to council, let's move it up to council.
Okay, so what does the committee want to do? Do you,
Everything.
yeah? Move it to council? I just heard two people say move it to council.
Yeah, you can have the same argument in full council.
Well, that's just it, and that's really where I'd rather have it as opposed to coming back saying, why is this committee just trying to avoid that? But,
I'll make a motion to move to council.
okay, just, so the recommendation is move to council. It's second by Councillor Rivard. Perfect. So, are we okay to move it to council? Well, exactly. That's, we're just trying to avoid an argument here is all we're okay?
Mr. Chair, just one other, so can I take from this that for multi-year contracts, and as long as the contract is in line with the approved budget, that it should just stay at the standing committee from the standing committee to council, or do you want to see it here at finance? I guess that's the question I'm asking, to give some clarity to council, to staff.
Go ahead. Well, and I don't want to speak for the committee, but whether it's a multi-year contract or a single-year contract, like, we're going to have to move the snow, whether it's this year or in 4 years' time. So we're going to have money in Mr. Adams' budget to move the snow. So I personally don't think it has to come to finance unless it's additional money or new money. But we just, like as Councillor Duffy said, we debated on a budget as a group. We passed it. So carry on with the budget as opposed to pitting committee against committee, because that's all we're doing here.
We already got punished for not following the process. So this committee is going to be sent on to council. That's what happened in that previous case, even before the recommendation from this committee. That's why we had to start all over again with the enterprise issue.
So do you want us to vote here, Councillor Duffy? Is that what you're?
Sure, I'll send on to council, but let's revisit this whole bit of it. Is this a situation where we're going to impose our structure of awarding contract, or is this not the way we're going to do it? I mean, we can't be jumping back and forth depending if our friends apply or not.
That's not fair.
Mr. Boone told us, within the last 3 months. We didn't follow. So Ray and your staff will have to come up with some sort of report to the council. Because it would just be it would just be the same thing all over.
Move on to council.
Chair, that's, so, like, again, I think we're just kind of chasing our tail here. The end of the day is that Donna has asked for direction from the committee. She has asked, when should it come to finance, when shouldn't it come to finance? Things should come to finance when we haven't budgeted for it, okay, and it's over budget, they're asking for new money, or in the event that we have to transfer money from one line item to the other line item to cover something. Those are the times that we should be seeing it. If it's budgeted for and is approved by council, and it should go straight to council, it shouldn't have to come here every time, right? Just,
Move it forward. Move it forward.
But if it's gonna go to council, it has to have a report and a recommendation.
but it will. But it will. So in this case, for instance, and Enterprise, and we talk about the fire station, we talk about all those, right? They all did have recommendations that came. Yes, it did. It had recommendation from Public Works to here, and then a recommendation from here to council.
Yeah.
That's what created
Yeah.
the problem.
Point-
Right.
yeah, point of-
My point being is that
Point of order.
it should have went directly to council from
Yeah.
Public Works, such as this.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I think we made a collective decision to go forward.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
With a report or without a report?
I think, yeah, I think,
Nobody said, Donnie, nobody said that, and you just said.
But very rarely,
Anyways, the report's in the package. Yeah, okay.
okay. Is that all we need Mr. Adams for?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
He can go eat now.
Okay, thank you. Five, 5A, number 2, that's just to rescind the strategic growth project. I don't know if Donnie or,
yes, Mr. Chair, this is part of our municipal strategic component program and it was accepted by the PEI Infrastructure Secretariat, but we didn't need to, we want to rescind its intent to use this funding for the strategic growth project. And that, but we will use the funding for other infrastructure.
So the fund is still there?
Yep, still have the funding.
okay, that's great, thank you. Okay, so we can move on to 5B, though it's one, oh, sorry, I don't have that.
I'm sorry, I think I took it from your desk as well.
Okay, sorry. There was one additional added resolution from Human Resources that was on our table. I know there's a little report attached. If there's any questions or comments, if not, we can. Okay, it's moved to approved. Thank you. Second by Councillor Ramsey. Thank you. Okay. So, all right. So now we can move on to 5B. The demolition of the Simmons Pool and Arena. It's October 4th, so it's pending review. Okay, so we're okay with that. 5C, they're out there, they're not closed. The Beach Street extension doesn't close to the 7th. We're okay with that, just information. And the new scoreboard at the Eastlink Center doesn't close till the 12th of October. Just, again, information.
Is that installed already? Did anybody know? I was over there the other day when we got out. Was the scoreboard already installed? Wasn't the night of the.
No. Mr. Chair, just on the pending review, will we have a recommendation coming to council on the 11th for demolition of Simmons Pool and Arena?
Mr. Chair, we will be making every effort under the sun to try and do this. As you know, that, as you may not know, it was due that tender closed, I think, on Monday after the storm. Was it Monday or Tuesday after the storm? We were closed. We had people who were from the other side who were making applications, so we extended it at that time. We have 4 applications in. They have to be interviewed. We're trying to get that done, and we will. It will go. It'll go to Parks and Recreation, and given if it's within the budget, then it'll go for Parks and Recreation, and if they approve it, we will circulate it to Parks and Recreation, and then we will forward it on to council.
And Mr. Chair, if it does need a decision or recommendation from Finance and Property Standing Committee, we can do it by email.
Well, that's, and
I
Parks
just,
and Rec too.
let's get this
Yeah.
going because
Yeah, we're
we're getting into late in the year, and in terms of pouring the base, the concrete, the foundation for the facility, that may have to be delayed until next year because of frost issues and so forth. So I just want to keep moving on this issue. Thank you, sir.
So, Chair, I absolutely agree we should move on issues, but again, we're putting so many hurdles in the way of getting things of I guess progress. I mean, it was no different from the last example. I mean, we just approved the cyber security thing. If it was budgeted for through human resource and that's the report, it should just go to council. Okay, demolition for Simmons Pool. Did we budget an amount for the demolition of Simmons Pool? Okay, perfect. If the tender comes back and it fits within the budget, it just goes to council. Why does it have to go through so many hurdles, right? Now, if it comes higher, bring it back to us. Absolutely.
I think, Mr. Chair,
We're chasing our tail here, and we just talked about it, and we're doing totally opposite within 5
what
minutes.
did happen, and we did get a legal opinion, and that was mentioned by one of the councillors here, that the process on the leasing option was reviewed by our legal counsel. Their office, Cox Palmer, said that we did not follow process. That's why I think there's a concern about following process. So again, it's just this Simmons Pool and arena demolition, I think, is a priority that we have to get going ASAP. Thank you.
Chair.
We will make every effort, but there are, I spoke to the manager of Parks and Recreation this morning. He has the budgets in. There's interviews have to be done with all 4. They are trying to arrange them so that they can get it. And given your latest policy, if it's within budget, it'll go straight to Parks and Rec, and then to council. If it's more, it'll go Parks and Rec, and then it'll come here.
So, Chair, I want to hammer this point one more time. Again, we go through the budget process each year. We ask committees, the managers of the departments, to come forward with a budget. We approve a budget. If they work within the budget, again, with no additional money, we shouldn't see it. It should go right to council. Period. There should be no confusion there. And this is where we get the hurdles or the backlog in getting stuff done, is things like this. If there's no new money and it's not a transfer, move it to council. It's to have these debates. It's to have these type of debates amongst council, that if council is confused or they don't agree with something, it should be at the council level. It shouldn't be through a committee that unanimously approves something, going to another committee who doesn't have near the information, which is why I asked Mr. Adams, again, to approve or reject, and then it goes to council, now we got problems.
Okay, all right. So we got clear direction on that. Number 6, is there any new business that anyone had to bring up? I don't see any. there a close? Okay. No, so there's nothing further in the closed session, so we just need a motion to adjourn. It's moved, it's second. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.